You ever have one of those moments where you think, if I could rewind my life just 5 minutes, I'd change one tiny thing and none of this would have happened? For me, that moment was standing in my driveway at 2 in the morning, staring at the blank wall where my Tesla charger used to hang. Not the car, just the charger, that long black cord with the little click handle I'd been way too proud of. I had worked my butt off for that house, a decent two-story at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, and every evening when I plugged in that charger, it felt like a victory lap. And now it was gone. I wasn't thinking theft at first. I tore through my own garage like a lunatic. Opened the trunk of my car 3 times, even checked behind the lawnmower, as if I'd somehow misplaced a $600 piece of equipment. Finally, the truth hit me. Somebody had walked right onto my property and stolen it. That's not just theft, that's a violation, and it lit a fire in my gut that I couldn't put out. So I did what any tech nerd would do. I poured myself some stale coffee and pulled up the security cams. 90 minutes of watching cats, leaves, and headlights roll by until finally, there it was, one figure in a hoodie creeping across my lawn. They walked straight up to the charger, popped it off the bracket, and coiled it like they were wrapping a garden hose. But then the garage light kicked on, and the hood slipped back just enough for me to see blonde hair, pale skin, that pinched sour face I knew too well. It was my next-door neighbor, let's call her Doris. Now Doris was one of those women whose lawn looked like artificial turf and whose house smelled like lemon disinfectant, even from the outside. We'd spoken maybe twice since I moved in, both times like she was being forced to interact with me. And now here she was, stealing a Tesla charger she couldn't even use. I sat there in disbelief, watching that clip over and over, waiting for it to make sense. But it didn't. I wasn't calling the cops just yet. I wanted to see her face when I confronted her. So I marched across that little strip of grass and knocked on her door hard. She cracked it open in a bathrobe, eyes already rolling. "What in God's name do you think you're doing on my porch at this hour?" she hissed. I opened my mouth, but she cut me off. "You people have no respect for boundaries. You crawl in here from the gutter and think you own the place." I froze. "You people." That switch flipped fast. My blood boiled. I held up my phone. "I have you on video, Doris. You walked into my garage and took my charger. Just give it back." Her lips curled into something between a smirk and a snarl. "You liar. How dare you accuse a helpless old woman? You're threatening me. I'm calling the police." She slammed the door, and seconds later I heard her shrieking into the phone about a large, aggressive man trying to break in. I knew right then if I ran home the story would be hers. So I stood out on the sidewalk, arms folded, phone recording, waiting for the flashing lights. When the cruisers rolled up, 2 cops stepped out, one young and jumpy, the other older and tired. The young one barked at me to put my hands up, while the old one squinted at the scene like he'd seen this play before. Doris came stumbling out, waterworks on full blast, clutching her husband like a prop. "Officers, thank God he tried to smash my door down," she wailed. The young cop, let's call him Rookie, wrapped his arm around her shoulders, glaring at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. The older one, call him Vet, walked over to me and asked for my side. I showed him the video. Crystal clear. Doris in her hoodie hair catching the light. He watched it twice, then waved Rookie over. Rookie's face shifted from righteous fury to confusion. Doris saw it too and panicked. "What video? He's a hacker. He fakes things." But then her husband, trembling like a leaf, muttered, "Honey, it's in the garage, behind the mower." And just like that, the game was up. Vet retrieved the charger, handed it back to me, and asked if I wanted to press charges. Doris's tears dried, instantly replaced by icy rage. "You'll regret this," she spat. "This neighborhood has standards. You'll wish you never moved here." I thought that was the end. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I got a fat envelope from the HOA. Violations stacked like a grocery list trash can on curb. Too long, unapproved vegetable garden, unauthorized electrical fixture. Yeah, they were talking about the charger, the same one she stole. Daily fines threatened if I didn't comply. That was Doris's revenge weaponizing the HOA bylaws. Then came the whispers. My neighbor Sarah pulled me aside awkwardly. "Hey," Doris came by. "She said you tried to break into her house. That you're dangerous." I laughed in disbelief, but it wasn't funny. Suddenly, the couple across the street stopped waving. Conversations at the mailbox went silent when I walked up. Doris was poisoning the well, and I was drowning in it. One evening, I caught the eye of the guy who'd just moved in on the other side of her house. Tall, calm, carried himself like he'd been through battles I couldn't imagine. He introduced himself as James. We started talking, and eventually I spilled everything. He listened, nodded, and finally said, "She's done this before. I pulled some records. She's called the cops on half the block over the years, always the victim, always the same script. And she used to run the HOA board, knows every loophole." That shook me. This wasn't random. Doris was a professional victim, a manipulator with a decade of practice. James looked me dead in the eye. "Don't play her game. Document everything. Build your case. Let her hang herself." I took his advice. Binder photos, recordings, my dossier of crazy. And just in time, because a week later I woke up to a fresh scratch carved down the length of my Tesla. Cameras caught a hooded figure, same build, same shuffle, but face hidden. Police said not enough to prove. Doris denied it, then filed her own harassment complaint against me. Now it looked like two feuding neighbors. She was dragging me into the mud. That's when my dad said, "Get a lawyer." Enter Mr. Green, a shark in a suit who flipped through my binder like it was his morning paper. He grinned. "She's good. But you've got her beat. We'll hit her with a cease and desist, a warning to the HOA, and file a restraining order." And it worked. The HOA violations stopped. Doris's gossip quieted down. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe I had the upper hand. Until we got to court. Doris arrived in pearls and pastels, playing the sweet grandmother act. She sobbed about feeling unsafe about me tormenting her. But then Green played the audio from that night, the part where she sneered, "You people don't belong here." The courtroom went ice cold. Her mask cracked. She screamed, pointed, accused me of conspiracies, even dragged James into it. The judge slammed the gavel and granted a 5-year restraining order on the spot. HOA folded, sent me an apology letter, and retroactively approved the charger. I thought it was done. But Doris wasn't finished. Right before her theft trial, she produced a letter claiming she had dementia and kleptomania signed by a Dr. Carter. James made some calls. Turned out Carter was her brother-in-law, a disgraced ex-surgeon running a fake clinic. The DA tore her motion apart in court, exposing the whole scam. And just like that, Doris wasn't facing petty theft anymore. She was looking at felony charges for perjury and obstruction. I'll never forget watching the bailiffs escort her out, screaming that it was all a setup, while her husband sat in the back row, head in his hands. Within a month, their house was on the market. He came by once before they left, handed me a little potted plant, and whispered, "I'm sorry. Thank you for standing up to her." That plant still sits on my kitchen windowsill today. The neighborhood breathed again. The couple across the street waved. Sarah laughed at my jokes. James and I had barbecues. For the first time, that cul-de-sac felt like home. Months later, I saw Doris at a hardware store. She was in sweatpants, hair unkempt, arguing with a teenage cashier about a senior discount on potting soil. When our eyes met, she froze, muttered something, and stormed out. In that moment, she wasn't my nemesis anymore. She was just a broken person, eaten alive by her own bitterness. Funny thing, weeks after that, I found the original charger box in my garage. Inside was a tiny bag with one screw I'd never used. The instructions said to secure the charger to the wall with that screw to prevent theft. One screw. 10 seconds of effort. If I'd done that, none of this would have happened. The whole storm started with me skipping one tiny detail. And maybe that's the lesson. Yes, Doris was cruel, manipulative, and racist, and she got what she deserved. But I also learned how small things can snowball, how important it is to stand up and fight with facts, not fury, and how neighbors like James can change the whole story. Now I sit on my porch, hear the charger hum, tend to my tomatoes, and glance at that little plant in the window. It's a reminder that storms pass, bullies fall, and peace is worth fighting for. So tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you have pressed charges, or would you have let it go to keep the peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share your own neighbor nightmares. And don't forget to subscribe if you believe standing up to bullies is always the right call.